And his answer was not what I expected, but excellent. Hey everybody, Scott and I went to Jordan Peterson's event this Sunday in Everett, Washington. It was amazing. It was actually my first time ever going to a Jordan Peterson event, and we wanted to share what we talked about. There was a Q&A at the end, and then we did kind of like the extra stuff, so I actually got to meet him and talk to him. I wanted to share all that with you guys. But first I want to take a quick second and thank LMNT, LMNT, which is an electrolyte mix, for sponsoring this video. I drink LMNT a few times a week to help replenish my electrolytes. It has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, 200 milligrams of potassium, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. It works really well for relieving headaches, cramp, fatigue, and sleepiness that can come with electrolyte deficiencies. And my favorite thing about it is I have 3 autoimmune issues. It has no sugar, coloring, artificial fillers, gluten, or anything like that. I am just very sensitive. I personally get the raw, unflavored. I do this because I try not to use anything that has any sugar in it. Right now, LMNT's offering a free 8-pack sample pack with any purchase. It has all 8 flavors in it, which I really like, because then you can try things like the orange salt and see what you like and not waste money buying something you don't care for the flavor. To get this, you just go to drinklmnt.com/carnivorousme. That's drinklmnt.com/carnivorousme, and I also have it down in the description for you guys. So, Jordan Peterson lecture. Go.
Listen, if you hear Jordan Peterson and you have some type of negative reaction, like, oh, I'm not sure about this, well, there's a Murphy's Law of Combat I love. I apply it for all parts of my life. If it's stupid, but works, it ain't stupid. And we've read the books, and I know there's a lot of other political connotations about this speaker because he has taken value or positions that people may not like, but it works. So I just ask that you open your mind to possibly listen about our experience and what we got out of it, and that maybe you should read the book for yourself. You might get something out of it, regardless of what everybody else has said about him or his work.
The night started off with some music, guitar player music stuff, which was nice. But what actually started the night was his wife came out on stage. She talked for 15 minutes. And she went over Rule 5 of Jordan Peterson's, obviously his second book, Beyond Order. And the rule is, don't do things you hate. So she gave an example of she's been touring with Jordan for a few years and she started to feel kind of lost. And she took time off the tour, went home, and she said that little voice in her head pretty much said she should be getting her own hotel room. And the reason is because they aren't just touring on the road, they're technically living on the road. And she gets up at different times than Dr. Peterson, and she didn't have her own space. And pretty much what it was she was forcing herself to give up things she wanted to do that she enjoyed doing just to meet what he needed or what she thought he needed. So she was forcing herself to do things that she didn't or hated to do. And that was the little tidbit kind of around the book. Did I miss anything?
No, I actually thought that that dynamic that they talked about in like negotiating their marriage, it's like, okay, well, our house is not just one room and we're in there the whole time. It's that we each have separate spaces. So when we're living on the road, we should have some separate spaces. And I found that that's like, for a functional marriage, like, yes, you're not spending all day long with each other in every moment. People just need their own space. They have their own things they want to do. I thought that was a good example of how that works.
So after his wife got off stage, he got on. And if you've never been to one of his lectures, I have not previously, it is very organic. He actually talked about things he had been doing the day before and thinking the night before. I thought we were going to talk about the book, but I found it very refreshing that it was just a very spontaneous conversation. And what he first started talking about was ARC, which is
the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship, which is my wheelhouse. I was so happy with this lecture.
And it is not just his, but a core group of them, 8, I believe, kind of got together, and they're
trying to figure out how to have better governance. Like, how do you have rights that people recognize across countries, and that you can cooperate legally without abuse of power?
How do we have the government not turn us into just carbon making machines, and that's how they count us, is we're carbon producers? How do we as citizens have an opinion and an impact with the world so tied together? And I think part of this is it's in response to like the World Economic Forum and these bodies that are attempting to govern. It's like the top 0.002% of the world trying to govern everybody else, but they're so far removed from what
everybody else lives and stuff.
Life and how things are, that it's do as I say, not as I do.
Prime example, World Economic Forum, go to Davos, Switzerland, and there's hundreds of private jets going there, and they're talking about
climate
the
change.
need to control climate change and cut the carbon footprint of the average citizen. It's like, you just flew there in your own jet. You have any idea what kind of carbon footprint that is? So anyways, his conversation was very organic in the sense of, like, he's like, I want to have an answer to the WF, but how do you balance, like, you don't want to have, like, a global government without, like, consent of the people, but
and that's not what this is.
That's not what it is.
They're not trying to create a global government. But
no, but they're like, how do we, like, because they're trying to do that with the World Economic Forum, and how do we respond to that responsibly with citizens that have buy-in and participation such that, our rights and our views are represented? It was a very interesting conversation.
He talked about some of the fundamental questions that they are using to try to answer this. And it's not just one person, it's a group of them.
Right.
And one of them was how to get people's buy-in without forcing them.
Yes.
Without using things like
coercion,
yeah.
Maybe the vaccine shots were a good idea, but by coercion, like, okay, you have to have this to be able to come to work, or you have to have this to be able to participate in the economy. It's like, that's not good government. Which, the process for all this it's just a kind of a policy kind of process idea. He's talking and trying to convene with others, but it was a very interesting discussion.
Yeah, and then he talked about they did bring up the question of, like, how to not necessarily prevent climate change, but how do we take care of the resources that we have and for the future?
Right.
And I mean, that does fall into how do we take care of the planet?
How are we going to be good stewards of the world? And that's the key, because everybody really wants to be a good steward of the world. They want to leave something to their children. They don't want to just sit on their couch and eat Cheetos and let it burn to the ground. They want to have something around for their children and grandchildren.
Yeah. So there was just a good portion of the beginning was talking about that. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting. And then he started moving into things like the Q&A, which I found was the best part, personally. The first question that he asked.
So in his books, he talks about that there is a little bit of Hitler and Stalin in all of us. So the question was, well, if there's a little bit of Hitler and Stalin in all of us, is there a little bit of Jesus in all of us? And his answer was very, very intriguing in the sense that, there's Hitler and Stalin in all of us if we live by lies. And that's the power of lies, that they start to distort what you value, reality, the value of other people, rights, all kinds of stuff. So if you live in lies, that's how that manifests. And the Christians would refer to that as, Satan. father of lies, you have Satan in you. And he didn't really he's not really speaking in the spiritual sense or the religious sense.
Well, he said he was and he wasn't.
Yes, but he's not he's trying to okay, so you can take this religiously or spiritually, or you can take this just values and actions. If you value the truth and you act like that, and you always try to tell the truth, then, well, that could be aligned with, God and Jesus. But if you live by lies, you tell lies to get what you want, manipulate, if you're one of those type of people, then that's more of the darkness. And ultimately...
we have both in us.
Yes, because we have the capacity for great evil and great good.
Yes. Now, I believe he finished up that question with saying he truly believes good outweighs evil. And then he also was discussing about how, 5 or 4% of the population is considered psychopathic or sociopaths.
Yeah, so there's 4% that are just... They fulfill what he called the quad, because there was a question later that Amanda got asked, which was great, about how do you deal with social media trolls who are just there to hurt people.
Yeah, but we'll come back to that one.
Anyways, but the 4% is actually very small. And the point is that, there's 96% of people that are just normal, that are wanting to have a good thing. And it was very interesting seeing that if you really choose to tell the truth and live by the truth and just kind of deal with it, even if the truth is something you don't want to hear or it's contrary, to
what you believe.
To what you believe.
Or think.
I mean, if my marriage is failing, then I can avoid that for years and it definitely fails. Or I can address it and maybe salvage it and go on. Not that I'm just...
He's stuck with me forever.
Yes.
Until
forever.
one of us dies.
I'm just saying that there's... People avoid the truth when it can be painful.
Oh, I don't want to get too far from this.
Yeah.
He talked about the Gulag Archipelago and that was an absolute turning point for him. And he realized that's when we all have a little bit of Stalin or Hitler in us. Because... in the camps there, in the gulags, the prisoners, I haven't read it yet, but this is something I do want to read. The prisoners actually were their own wardens.
Yeah, they were the camp guards. They guarded the other prisoners. Mm-hmm. And so...
that's what he's talking about. He's like, Stalin and Hitler by themselves have no power. It was every other person that made the choice to go along with it. And it wasn't a light switch that went from... everything's great to now everything's terrible and evil. It was slow erosion of their values and morals and lies, one small lie to another, that eventually then they got where they got.
Yes.
Which...
and it really was the lies taking over how you lived. Mm-hmm. And then you can live with anything because you live with the lies. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
So that was the first question.
And the second one? How does someone advance in a company that pushes woke culture? How do you move forward? I actually loved this answer because it doesn't just have to do with this, but honestly, life in general. And his response was, why do you think eroding your morals, your values, what you think is important, how is that advancing? How is adding zeros to the end of your paycheck, but you wake up at 3 a.m. because, you lied to yourself or you lied to others and you know you did? How is that advancement? And that kind of hit me hard, wow. That is, because I feel like a lot of people, especially younger people, are chasing making more money, but they are willing to sacrifice parts of them to get that goal. What do you think?
There was also just another component we was talking about, you need to step back and look at how'd you get in that position? How are you in a position that you can't say your mind? You cannot
speak your piece.
Speak your piece. And he had some really good points about it. It's like, if you think that you're a competent manager, for example, and you're like, I can't speak my piece or I'll get fired. Well, are you really a competent manager? Because you should be worried about finding another job. So what he really kind of talked about is also how do you deal with that? And part of it was evaluating your skill set and evaluating what you wanted to do and what you had to do for...
How do you deal with what, though?
Not being able to speak your piece. Do you, all of a sudden, after being, 5 years, you've been, quiet and haven't said things, and all of a sudden you're like, I don't think this is a good idea, and you should do X, Y, Z, and then, that afternoon you're putting all your stuff in a box and walking out the door.
Yeah, he said, don't do something stupid.
Don't do something stupid.
Because if you have to have a job and feed your family.
That's just stupid.
Yes. He suggested if you think you are a competent manager, then you should be able to go out and get a job. It might not be easy, but you can do it. And if you can't get a job, then maybe you aren't as competent as you think you are. And he said, he's like, I'm not saying this in a remotely judgmental way, but really self-assess.
Right.
If you are afraid you can't get another job, but you think you're competent, are you really competent, or do you just think you are?
And then he kind of went into if you want to take some action to address your conscience in the corporate culture that you're in, then get your resume ready. Polish that up.
Have a plan in place.
That's right. Have some skills. Maybe start looking. Figure out what is best. Because he's like, just losing your job for no reason is stupid. And I loved how he used stupid so much. That's what reminded me about Murphy's Law of, if it's stupid but works, it ain't stupid. Well, if it's stupid and doesn't work, it's definitely stupid.
Mm-hmm. And I think a big thing he pointed out is he's like, these corporations get to the point where they're so big they can't fail, or at least they think they can't.
Mm-hmm.
And if things are being said you don't agree with and you haven't been disagreeing with them, you put yourself in a very bad place because you are compromising yourself, you are lying, and that is, something I don't think people actually realize is they're always like, how do these evil atrocities happen? How do people go from being like a kid to all these evil things? One lie at a time. One bad decision at a time. One immoral, value-degrading, soul-eroding choice at a time. And that's why I think he really hit home about if you are somewhere that you are having to erode yourself from the inside out, find somewhere else.
Yep. Find another plan. Become an entrepreneur.
Something. Use your skills. Gain new skills.
Gain new skills if you have to. Yeah. And if you have 2 years before you can move on because you had to learn a new skill, then you need to do that. Because your conscience is going to help you perform very well at whatever you do.
Yes.
And if you're always pushing your conscience down, then it's going to be very hard to perform well.
And this actually is covered in Rule 5, which is don't do what you hate to do. In the Beyond Order book, he actually specifically talks about, funny enough, this exact situation. That if you are somewhere you literally hate to be, then do something about it. And doing something about it doesn't mean go and telling your boss to, take a hike that day, but put something actionable plan into changing your future situation. And that might be 2 years down the road, but some hope is better than no hope.
Which really lays back into the very first question about, are you living by lies or are you living by the truth? Mm-hmm. The right of free speech in this country is amazing because it allows you to tell the truth, even if it's unpopular. Okay, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he followed God, and God was very angry with the city because it was falling into decay and corruption.
Talking about Sodom and Gomorrah, right?
Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And so it's like, God, will you not destroy the city if there's, 1,000 good people in it? Because, there's 1,000 good people. It's like, I won't destroy the city. And he's like, what about 100 good people, God? It's like, no, I will not destroy the city if there's 100 good people. And then it gets all the way down to 10. And then what if there's one? And he's like, if there's one, I won't destroy the city. Right? It's God's judgment and wrath about the corruption and just evil that was going on in the city because it was all around them. The point is that story is the basis of American law. Until the Constitution came about, you were guilty until proven innocent. But because of that concept that even it's better to have a guilty person go free that an innocent person go to jail. That they believed and they wrote that you are innocent until proven guilty. Totally different outcome. So I knew about this concept a while from civics, and I really, really liked it. It's what I think really separates our justice system from a lot of other stuff in history. What he really kind of pointed out that just impacted me so much was that maybe you don't need a lot of people to turn around the corruption and evil you see. Maybe you only need 10 people that can change the direction of a town, a city, a country. So it really kind of gave me a lot of hope and fortitude for what I see what's going on in the world today.
He said if 1 out of every 10 of you took action forward, he said, where you live right now would look like a completely different place in 5 years.
Yes.
And he also talked about this was the things that bug you, the things that you have on your mind that absolutely just irk you. Someone asked, this was the question,
Homelessness in Seattle.
Homelessness in Seattle. How do we deal with it? Like, what actions or plans can we put into place? And his answer was not what I expected, but excellent. Pretty much he said, go volunteer. Go see what the problem is. He said people want to boil it down to just one variable, one factor. He said, but it's not. He said you'll have multiple factors affecting it. And then you go even lower tiered, you have now the individual's issues, which have different factors from every different homeless person. He said, how can you solve a problem if you don't actually understand in your community what is causing it? It could be poor policy. It could be free handouts. It could be various things that are causing it. He mentioned San Francisco has some of the highest homelessness, and it's because zoning laws. The zoning laws make it where only like 5% or something like that can actually afford to buy housing there. So they have a huge homelessness population because, well, not solely, but a main reason is
The main reason, which is totally different in Seattle. And so that's what his point was, like, listen,
if homelessness bothers
you're
you,
the solution. It's not a policy that you can put on a national scale or something that's going to really solve it. If there's a policy on a national scale, it's very broad. And you can't do much more than that because you have so many details that apply for wherever you are. And that, pretty much like if something is irking you. If
like the homelessness in Seattle.
It's like, well, listen, that is something in you that is trying to manifest.
That is your problem to deal with. Where are we at? Yeah, you.
Problem manifest. What actually you were kind of like touching on was if there's something that's bugging you, like in society or the area you live, that is something you want to deal with or that you don't like, it's because
you need to deal with it.
You need to
Not
deal
that
with
you
it.
want to deal with it, but if it bugs you, be that person, be that 1 in 10 that makes the change. Because if not, all we're doing is sitting back complaining. Complaining does nothing. If things are bugging you, take action and move forward to changing it one small step at a time.
It's like, if you complain about what's going on in school boards and being educated in school, you know why it's a problem? Because you're not involved.
Yeah.
You need to run for school board. You need to do something. If it bothers you, you have to do something. And Amanda and I were discussing on the way back, and she's found her why. Like, why she's doing it.
Not just my why, what bugs me. What bugs me wholeheartedly is this crazy fat acceptance stuff. I absolutely do not believe in fat shaming. And when I mean fat shaming, I mean bullying people, not having real conversations with people you care about. Like, hey, listen, your weight's, gonna kill you, or like, I'm here for you. Let's go for a walk. No, not that. I'm talking about going up to strangers and calling them fat, or just, you guys know. We all know when I say fat shaming, that's what I'm talking about. But the fat acceptance, because let me tell you, every single obese, morbidly obese, super obese person that goes out there and says, oh, it's great being overweight, they are liars, either to themselves and the world, or they're sociopaths. Why? Being fat is terrible. It is painful. The boils, the issues, wiping your own butt, hygiene. This is my problem. And that is a big reason. One, I want to help people, but two, I cannot stand the fat acceptance.
The fat acceptance really bothers Amanda, but it's also like, where's the balance between the fat acceptance and the fat shaming? Because you want to encourage people to make a change, but shame doesn't really work on women.
It doesn't. I think
it works on men sometimes. You know, they feel kind of, I'm
of course, there are the outliers that are women that probably do well with shaming, but honestly, women are very self-conscious.
Yeah.
And they tend to be very people orientated. So shaming them does not work.
It's like if you truly wanted to help with somebody with their health, shaming a woman on their health, on their weight is the worst way to ever do that.
But at the same time, saying you look beautiful when you obviously look very sick, that's not good. But offering to go for a walk with them, or, you know, make a healthy meal to eat with them, or things like that, that's what I'm all for. Anyways, we got slightly sidetracked.
But I found my why. My why is far more complex and there's a lot to it. But I found myself, after having that conversation about, if something bugs you, that means something's trying to manifest. Mm-hmm. And I thought about it, and I thought about it all day yesterday. I did a lot of reading and kind of research, and I know what I need to do now. And it's very, very important to me. That's why I pay attention to financial stuff. That's why, I do, geopolitical and economic things I really like to read. Some of my heroes are economists. Anyways, I think that it's really good for people to read his books and kind of get that, because having a purpose in what you do is very important. And understanding the importance of telling the truth and living by the truth is also critically important. And he makes a very logical argument for it.
He does. And I was reading chapters 6 and 7 this evening, and something else dawned on me, and through the reading the chapters as well, which then ties into this too, is without having a why, without having a goal or an aim, we just float endlessly in no direction at all. And that is a terrible place to be.
Mm-hmm. Not only that, you start to actually circle the drain and go to nihilism.
Well, yeah.
I mean, if you don't have a purpose, like why you're going from today to tomorrow, then you just go down to nihilism. Nihilism is that there's no purpose or meaning for anything. So
so you just gain pleasure out of what momentary stuff you can get.
And your pleasure could be torturing a cat. It could be eating a bag of Cheetos. It could be watching.
Please don't torture a cat.
Yes, please don't torture a cat. It could be watching, binge watching.
YouTube, honestly.
YouTube. Or binge
Netflix.
Watching a TV show that you love.
Because life has no meaning.
Yeah, there's no meaning. But what he talks about is that when you start actually living that and realizing that, and after you've gone through all these cycles of doing these things, you're like, there's no purpose. And generally that results in like suicide, or it does also result in
a very dark path.
A very dark path. Human beings, the way we work, we have to have something that we're working towards, or we just let all the different things that happen in life that seem terrible, the suffering.
A good example is having 1,000 different choices you can choose. People tend to think the more choices you have, the better off it is. Mm-hmm. But that's not the case. The more choices you have, the more unbound we are, the harder it is to choose. And so then we just kind of float endlessly because we can't make a choice. Mm-hmm. So having a aim point, having something, a target we're aimed at that moves our very souls is vital.
Moves our daily action.
Oh yeah, the end goal is the end goal, but then you have to take the small steps to get there. Because I mean, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right?
Right.
And so you have to chop it up into smaller things, but having a why. And that kind of tied up the main part of Dr. Peterson's event. But we stayed for the extra stuff.
In January, before Amanda even tweeted something and included Michaela, his daughter, because she's really famous for starting carnivore and getting her dad on it and just kind of growing
The
with
lion
her.
diet.
Yeah, the lion diet. Anyways, before Amanda even tagged Michaela in Twitter, this came up. Her brother brought it up. I'm like, oh, we need to go. Mm-hmm. And I felt that the impact of the book, and this gets back to what I was saying about if it works, it ain't stupid. The impact of the book, it saved Amanda's life. The depression, finding her purpose and her why.
I had fallen into nihilism. What does it all matter? I can just go eat 80 pieces of cake, just try to feel better right in this moment.
The whole husband, every night, I hope I don't wake up. You'd be better off without me.
You mean me telling you this?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Her saying that was, well, that changed for me in the book. That's why we recommend it. That's why we really like this
The first book. The second book's actually excellent, too.
Yes. But I wanted to go and say thank you, because if somebody does something for you, they never get to really see the outcome. Whether it's you give them gas or help them change the tire in the car, or you just give them a kind word.
Something we've learned, the small things we do in life to help others, it can have just this catalyst effect. We have no idea if someone out of gas on the side of the road and we help them push their car to the gas station and give them gas. Well, that could have been the most important job interview that got them from not being homeless to getting a job. All because we decided to stop and help someone get gas. We never know how our actions are going to impact or influence someone else's life.
Mm-hmm. What we do in life echoes in eternity. I love that saying.
So we stayed for the after stuff, and they had us all line up, do pictures, and they were pretty much like, it was just like, hello, how are you next? Hello, how are you next? However, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tell him, because he has impacted so many people's lives. But I want him to know not only did he impact me, but his book was the catalyst for me to impact others. And I think that is extremely valuable for someone to know. So I walked up to him and I just said, you probably don't recognize me. My name is Amanda. You follow me on Twitter, Carnivore Me. And he stepped back and he's like, yeah, he's like, how's it going? He's like, how are you feeling? And I was like, well, I lost 100 pounds. He's like, yeah, I know. And we had, I don't know, a minute
he stopped, because it's really kind of fast, but he stopped the line to really engage her, and I was standing back because I didn't want to take a picture just yet, because I wanted her to have that moment. And we were so afraid that he would just be like, hi, hello, okay, move, hello, no. And
right, because they always
every
say,
person, he was very engaging, smiling. He's incredibly tall, too.
He is very tall. And all his pictures.
He was just so nice, and I was so starstruck. Amanda had a conversation, got a picture with him, and
all his pictures, you see him just, blank face. He is a very, very smiley
human.
smiley
guy, yes.
And I was honestly very nervous to meet him, because they always say, don't meet your heroes. And so I was just like, he is just the most caring, amazing human being. One of the most amazing people I've ever met. And he was so much more than I thought he would be, in such a good way. No. But he stopped the line, he had a conversation with me, and he's like, I'm going to tell Michaela I met you in person. And I was just like, oh my God. It was amazing. And then, of course, took photo. Then Scott was
I walked up and he's like, and you are? I'm like, I'm her husband. I didn't know my name. I was just so like, ugh.
And so then they did a picture with me, then a picture with both of us. And for whatever reason, Scott was like, no, I don't need a picture, just me and Jordan.
I just really wanted, I just wanted to say, because I walked up and I said, thank you for saving my wife's life, because I really believe that. And he was a really, and then after he did all the pictures, because there was about, 150?
125 of us.
Yeah.
We all sat back down. he pulled his chair to the end of the stage, and we did kind of like a little mini Q&A. And the first girl stood up. He called on her, and she said that she'd been working with her therapist and had been doing a lot better, and his book had saved her. But she was still having problems with people who raised their voice. Like, she would just shut down when someone would raise their voice. At first, I'm like, this is such a very personal question when, we're all here. But he looked at her, he engaged her, he gave an excellent answer. And his answer in response was, well, oh, that's easy to deal with. Have you had your therapist yell at you? She's like, no. He's like, yeah, that is the first thing you do. He said, do you have a partner? And she said, yes. And she's like, what you're going to do is as you're having a conversation with them, slowly increase the volume of the voice till eventually, and he's like, this will take time, weeks, if not months, to where he's literally yelling at you, not in a mean way, having a normal conversation, but yelling. And pretty much it desensitizes. And he's like, then yourself, you raise your voice as well, not in anger, but to desensitize yourself, which I thought was really interesting because I used to be like that, where I would shut down when people would yell at me. But now when Scott gets mad, I just laugh. Not at him. It's just, I just find it funny. Because now, as I've gotten older, I've realized some of the absurd stuff I think I used to just get so upset with, and I'm just like, it's silly.
Yeah.
The last question I actually got to ask, and it was, how did he deal with the negativity of being famous, pretty much, and how did he keep it from eroding his insides? Things like Twitter, because it's just can be a cesspool of negative people. And that's when he brought up that there's the thing that exists called the dark triad, which has narcissism, psychopath, sociopath, and Machiavellianism. And so Machiavellianism is people who would manipulate and say whatever just to be right, no matter what the truth is.
Or take your resources and live off them and leave you to die.
Yeah. The narcissists who literally will never be wrong no matter what. And then the psychopaths who actually derive pleasure from generating pain from other people. And that there is a huge volume of these on social media because of the anonymity of the internet makes them safe. So they'll say whatever without any repercussions. They would not say that to someone's face. Maybe they might think it, but there is no social inward pressure because they are anonymous doing this on the internet. And he said, he struggled with when people would say dumb things or very wrong things. He's like, he always has to struggle with himself with that urge of just wanting to smack them down and put them in their place. But you have to find the balance. And someone said to me, and I still think about it this day, is if you wouldn't ask that person for advice, why would you believe anything they say? And that's actually the way I've been taking a lot of the derogatory and or trying to tell me I need to add vegetables or various comments.
You're still fat. Really? Didn't know that. Thank you.
That's how I've been taking the comments, and it seems to be working quite excellent because if I wouldn't ask them for advice, then I'm not going to care what they say. Thank you guys for listening to this. It was amazing. If you get the chance, go to one of his lectures. It's amazing. And if you haven't, get the books. Get the first book. I'm using it currently as a stand. Get the first book. Start with this. I'm going to read it a third time. Why? Because as new revelations and new perceptions happen and I see the world differently, I get something more out of it. I learn more about myself and how I got where I got. And I have to say, I feel like a completely different person today than I did 8 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago, obviously. But every month I feel like I'm improving my character, who I am, and the strength inside me. My sense of self gets stronger, more solidified, and that is what I've been missing so long, is that strong sense of self. Read the book, get it. It is amazing. Don't forget we do book clubs, and Scott's doing this one on Sundays. We're doing the second book on Tuesdays. Thanks, guys. Bye. So I don't even know how, like, this conversation with you is so jarbled. My God, it's a hot mess.
What did you want to have an organic conversation? That's probably not going to stand.
It feels slightly preachy. It's good for you. Another question that was asked was,
well, it's on the lines of, so how do I advance?
You said so. I'm gonna be the so please today.